If you're ever putting out new content, I think of it as a lottery. Podcast, just audio only, that's 1 ticket. A TikTok, well, then you've got 2 tickets. Facebook, 3 tickets. Instagram, 4 tickets. And the more you put into that, the more tickets you have. You've got a better chance of your show finding its audience.
Now video is more important than the audio, just because but no one's going to get to the audio without the video. Everyone's just doom scrolling Instagram Reels, TikTok, Facebook Reels.
I'm really excited to see the evolution of video and the impact that has on brand integration. We just need the advertising industry to understand the opportunity and be a little bit more comfortable with risk.
Hey everyone, I'm Heen and welcome back to the RØDE video podcast, where we explore the constantly evolving world of podcasting, from behind the mic to now in front of the camera. Today, we're going beyond the microphone to unpack how the video revolution is transforming the ways podcasts are designed and distributed as digital content. Whether you're a solo creator or running a slate of shows at a network level, this episode unpacks podcasting strategies that will help you keep up with today's fragmented and fast-moving media landscape. Joining me today is Stephanie Coombes, journalist, media commentator, and podcast consultant. Joshua Fox, podcaster, content creator, author, and social media strategist. And Guy Scott Wilson, content director at Acast Australia and New Zealand. Hi guys, welcome.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for being here with me today. Steph, I'd love to start with you. If anyone's starting out and venturing into video podcasting with the tech or the hardware, what would your advice be?
I think that the one thing that is a non-negotiable that you have to get right is the audio. People will put up with fuzzy pictures, but they will not put up with bad sound. So you've got to nail that. Make sure you get the microphones right. And then after that, it's how far do you want to go? It is okay to have a podcast where we're doing something like this, where we're all talking and maybe we don't have any cameras, and then you'll do teaser snippets on your phone before or after. It's not technically a video podcast, but it does the same thing in some ways, right? Because then you've got social video feeds that will help feed into it. I think that that is kind of at the absolute bare minimum. That's what you've got to do. Get your phone out, do some filming before or after. If you actually want to fully make a video podcast,
Full-length
episodes, that's a little bit complicated in some ways. If you have an established format, you might have to rejig the format that you're doing. So you have to think, how will this sound when people press play? And also, how will it look? For some podcasts that I work on, I suggest that there is an audio edit, which is much tighter. And then I say, if you're going to film it, you do a longer edit, which is the video edit, which means that you don't have to chop up mid-sentences or whatever. So if I'm doing audio, I really pull it in, but I let video run a little bit longer because I think that YouTube is okay with that. In terms of the tech, I think that, again, if you're going really all out, ideally, to make editing easier, you want a camera on each person talking, and then you also want a master shot so you can cut. You know, you can go really full on or you can go much, much, much smaller. I think that what is important is what is sustainable for you. Sometimes when we're starting a new project, we get so ambitious, right? It's like, I'm going to do 4 episodes a week and it's going to have videos and it's going to be on YouTube and it's going to be this. And then you do it once and you're like, well, holy hell, I am exhausted. I'm never doing that again. And that's why I think often like podcasts and videos and people's social media, they blip in and out of existence. What's most important, more than anything else, I think, is consistency. So gear up slowly.
You also have to evaluate whether that investment is going to result in revenue growth. Will the investment in that tech pay for itself? I think today in 2025, it's hard to assume that adding a full-length video element to a podcast, a successful podcast, is going to result in additional revenue. As an industry, we're working to fix that. You know, how do we get the industry to a point where you can geo-target a video sponsorship in a full-length video episode in the same way that you can with the audio feed? That's the point at which I think that level of investment really starts to pay for itself. But in the meantime, from a discovery perspective, long-form video is amazing. It's the closest to a silver bullet that podcasting has come in terms of finding new audiences. YouTube is one of the biggest search engines in the world, and it would be crazy not to try and tap into that and make use of it if your means allow for that.
Don't go into podcasting expecting you're going to make money. That is like, honestly, like you may eventually, but like just assume that you're going to do it forever and you're not going to make $1. And if you do, great, but like don't sink $10,000 in thinking that you're going to make 50 back, because you might be. Yeah.
But it's worth pointing out how expensive it is to make full-length podcasts. Because then it's not just your iPhone, which everyone knows how to edit a video there. You need videographers, editors. The file size is like 50, 60 gigabytes each. Where are you storing them? Who's grading the files? Like, how are you? And you're talking, you've got one person on a day rate. And that's what, $600-700 a go. And you've not made any money from the podcast yet. And
if you're doing it and then you're not paying yourself because it is a day out, and it's just... then is it a hobby? Is it sustainable? If you're a brand, can you afford that?
I think for us, the challenge has been, if you're building a podcast with a strong visual identity from the outset, you're thinking about a set. And where does that set live? So having a space for people to come and record and making sure that remains accessible to podcasters is how we make sure video doesn't put barriers up that haven't existed before in podcasting. We're in the process at the moment of building a studio that will be fully set up for capturing video and social clips and that sort of thing, which will be available for all of the podcasters we work with. And that speaks to Acast's kind of ideology as a business in making sure as the economy grows and as the industry grows around podcasting, it remains sustainable and equitable for independent creators.
In that space, could the creators and podcasters set it to their own set and it's interchangeable?
Absolutely. And I think that's really important. There are so many very successful video podcasts that are out there, which are shot in a confined space, a bit like this, with some video screens behind them. And you can't tell one from the other, really. So I think as the video podcasting industry matures, unique visual identities are going to be what makes things stand out. There's a whole discourse at the moment around podcasts replacing chat shows. We're watching this play out in the US in front of our eyes, and it's really exciting and interesting to watch and learn from what's happening over there. Increasingly in Australia, it's hard to find great, safe spaces to place guests to promote their new album or movie or whatever it may be. And I think podcasting in time will replace that. The radio industry is declining, and we're seeing talent like Mitch Chury, choose to launch their own video podcast, which they own themselves, and they're thinking about the design of the set and how this looks on YouTube as much as how it sounds on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I think, for guest bookers and for promoters, the growth of that chat show format in Australian podcasting is going to play a key role as it's getting harder and harder to place those guests.
Really quick, guys. If you're a podcaster, make sure you check out the description below for links to the very best podcasting equipment and accessories from Rode, including the Rodecaster Video, the revolutionary all-in-one video and audio production console that combines powerful video switching, recording, and production capabilities with a fully integrated professional audio mixer, ideal for video podcasting. And now, back to the episode.
When did you see a turn of the tide in video podcasting? And was there a show or something you listened to where you felt like video podcasting was the way forward?
I don't think that there was so much one moment which you can say, well, that was the point. Rather, there was a shifting. It was all audio and it was all documentary audio. And that's what got a lot of people into the industry and got people very excited about audio. But then YouTube became so popular, and the idea of making content work as many places as possible, it just became too hard to ignore. I think for a while, a lot of people in the industry wanted to ignore video. But I'd say in the last 3 years, it's now at the point where you can't ignore it.
Josh, how about you?
Yeah, well, I'd say now video is more important than the audio, just because but no one's going to get to the audio without the video. And that's just a fact. Like when you look at how people consume content, everyone's just doom scrolling Instagram Reels, TikTok, Facebook Reels. And that's how they're finding these products, right? So like years ago, yeah, you say you want great production on the audio, but look at the new generation, they don't care. They just they're finding
they're visual
videos and then they go into that.
I think in terms of measuring success in podcasting, for me, downloads is still the currency that is most important. There's an industry around it which is now mature. It's turned from a $5 million industry back in 2017 into a $130 million industry. So the role that social media clips is playing in discovery is hard to avoid. Social media is the first time there's been an algorithm that podcasters can tap into, which is really amplifying growth. And I think that's hugely exciting from a discovery perspective. Podcasters are a fairly collegiate bunch, and I think that's been the secret sauce in the growth of podcasting, giving each other a leg up and helping rise the tide for everyone.
What do you see the potential windfall being for monetization in video?
We've gone full cycle in some ways with video, and we're now at the same point again as we were back in 2014. Dynamic ad insertion hadn't been invented, and people were baking in host readers into their audio podcast. The industry will work together to fix that and ensure that the monetization can be sustainable and can be profitable and lucrative for independent creators. In the meantime, it's worth building for it so that when that happens, you have a product which is ahead of the competition and has the scale necessary to translate into meaningful revenue. The audio podcast advertising industry is now so well established. There's still a big education job, and it's still a rapidly growing medium in terms of investment, but agencies know how to buy it. They know what big shows are, and they know what they're expecting from a campaign in audio. Acast has always been audio first, but not audio only. We've been selling social media as part of a sponsorship for a very long time, and we work with amazing creators who are so good at integrating a brand message into the work that they do, which makes it a much easier sell to a brand. The challenges with long-form video, as distinct from short-form and social video, are really around the inability to geo-target a commercial message and the perceived wastage that has for a campaign. So that's something that we're working really, really hard to fix, as others in the industry are as well. But video can open up so many opportunities for a brand, and that's something that we're working really hard to instill in the advertising industry, the opportunity for product placement. I'm really excited to see the evolution of video and the impact that has on brand integration. We just need the advertising industry to understand the opportunity and be a little bit more comfortable with risk. There will be a degree of wastage if we're baking in a branded integration into a YouTube video, but you're also doing things in a much more creative way.
Say someone already had a podcast and then and I think you touched on this earlier, Steph, introducing a video element, then the dynamic or even the way they present could change because the video element is so different. You don't really have anywhere to hide. How have you seen that change podcasts?
I think that it adds a lot of extra stress, I think, on some presenters. There are some people who are happy just to talk behind a microphone and not be seen. I think it's much harder on women as well because you can't be on camera and not be hot. That's the
Makeup,
thing with that.
hair,
exactly.
wardrobe,
you can't be scruffy.
Lighting.
So like you're already going to deal with more stuff. I think if you're a woman on the internet, you have to be at least polished, which I think dudes don't have to deal with. I mean, you can fight me on that, but I think it is harder.
Guys,
I think actually, interesting on that is I disagree that women have to be made up because you see the biggest growth and the most success is when they just no makeup, hair scraped back, it feels real. And the extra vulnerability you get from them as the host, like when they're touching on emotional things and you can see the tears, it's not just a snippet on socials, you see the full emotion and like the growth has been crazy.
I think that's a really good point, right? That everybody is looking for some sort of, reality. You see the vulnerability, you know the person, right? I think that's absolutely true. I do think though, if you go on and people on the internet don't think you're hot, and you're a woman with an opinion, sometimes the internet doesn't like that a whole lot. And so that's just something,
okay.
if you're vulnerable, if you are happy to deal with what might be occasionally very awful comments and you think that showing yourself to be real, I agree. I think that's very good. And I think that is actually the gold standard behavior.
Yeah.
If you're strong enough to do that, but if you're not, I don't blame you.
It's hard to come out of the internet unscathed.
Oh, yeah. And that's honestly, so you do open yourself up to all kinds of new sort of criticism and that can be quite difficult for people. So it is, you have to have a slightly thick skin if you're going and showing your face, I think.
Even if just starting a podcast, if you're putting yourself out there, you have to be able to take the criticism. And we all say we can, but like,
doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
When you wake up to 1,000 comments on TikTok saying you're this or that, you're like, okay, great.
Yeah, I don't read the comments anymore.
Even in the days before video, one of the biggest challenges that aspiring podcasters faced was hearing their own voice for the first time. And when you add a visual element to that, it can, of course, be more confronting for people. So there's a whole lot more to consider now than there has been at any point in podcasting's history. And again, I think we as an industry need to make sure that doesn't put up unnecessary barriers and that we are making sure that it remains a democratic medium, the barriers to entry remain low, and people aren't put off from getting into that, because I think that would be a real shame if we lost that democratized approach to the medium.
General etiquette, right? If you're having someone on, if you're inviting a guest onto your podcast. It's like when you if you take a nice photo, right, on like for social media, and you look great and your friend looks like crap, you don't put that photo up, right? Okay,
that's social media etiquette.
Yes, okay, and I think the same thing should apply for podcasting. Give the person the best, and they can go and get hair and makeup if they want or whatever, but you've got to give them the best chance. And lighting, like if you turn that light off, we would all look terrible. Like you have no idea. We're the ugliest group of people you know. Like this is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
We've had our makeup
my
done.
favourite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So make sure that you've got nice diffuse lighting. If it's too high, it'll give people sort of skull sockets. So you want it to sort of fill out the face. And I really think that's the least you can do.
Don't forget, some of the biggest video podcasts in the world have none of that. If you look at the work that Goalhanger are producing with The Rest is Politics and those kind of things, they're live streaming on Riverside. You know, it looks to all intents and purposes like a Google Hangout or a Teams meeting. And they are doing millions of downloads, millions of views on the video element.
I reckon they've got a lamp point of view. And like, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do giant expensive things. Like, you know, you can get a ring light for Kmart for $20 and that fills out your face very nicely. It just makes all your shadows. You can get your desk lamp and just point it at your face.
Yeah. There's a lot of hacks, and then you can level up after, but start with something.
Yeah, and just again, I think it's just good etiquette to make sure that your guest has the best chance to sort of look okay if you're doing a video podcast. That's just my generalised opinion.
You know, if you've got a guest as well, you want to essentially get their followers or their people over, so it's in the best interest to put that effort on them. But I think in terms of quality, what you mentioned, I think during COVID especially, people expect less now. Like we've just got used to it doesn't have to be great.
Seeing into people's lounge rooms
So that changed the landscape forever.
People are more forgiving, I think.
Yes.
Because that's all we had during COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was the classic case of the interview with, I think he was a professor, and his toddler came in.
In the background, on the little, on the chair, the rolly chair.
Yeah.
It was staged.
Yeah, was it?
No, it could have been.
It would have been staged if you were doing it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were seeing people's home spaces more so, their personal environments. And I think that just broke open this world of relatability, and we want that access.
I think people just want to see real people. And I say this to every potential client, especially like reality television stars. They come to me 6 months after the show and they go, why have my followers dropped? Why have my likes dropped? And I go, because the real person we fell in love with on screen is gone. You now think you're famous. You're pretending you're famous. You're only posting things which I call look at me posts. I'm in a expensive...
Or flogging things.
They're wearing a dress their average follower would never afford. They're on a vacation or eating in a restaurant they'll never afford, and the real person is gone. And then I'll say to them, like, you've just told me last week you were crying because of whatever. Oh yeah, but I'll never post that. That's what people want to see. That's how you'll grow your audience. Be real, vulnerable, and just raw. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a lot of ego then when it comes to talent, and they won't do that, and that's to their detriment. One of the shows I developed earlier this year was called Unscripted with Josh Mansour, a NRL player. And every week we get like a sports person on, and we've got 2 sets. One's like a round table, one's like a cigar lounge for more intimate chats. But each one of those, we're trying to think, what video can we do around that on set? Like, doesn't have to be the professional cameras. And we had Alex Volkanovski, the UFC fighter, earlier this week on. Great chat. Them 2 sat there, your standard podcast thing. And I go, well, that's not enough. Like, what else can we do while he's here? We've got this great talent. And then we filmed like a prank. One of our cameramen was a big fan of him, and we just got Volk to like do a little play fight with him, but then pretend he was injured. And that was all just filmed on iPhones. And then the day before the podcast went out, we posted that 1 million views overnight.
Would that be your advice to someone starting out or already having a video podcast? Create and generate supporting elements and assets with it?
Yeah, just think outside the box and just think, like, what do your audience want to see? What do they want to engage with? And show them, like, if they love you as a person, show these other sides of your life. Like the podcast I do with Jackie O, every time we do it, her dog's jumping through the set throughout the full length, and people love that because they'd feel part of something. Mm-hmm. Whereas like traditionally you might cut that out because you go, oh, this is messy, or the doorbell's rung, Uber Eats have arrived. But it just adds to the fun, right?
And Josh, you were saying that I asked where your studio is, or where do you film? And you said, at home.
Yeah, like I have a podcast studio, like an actual space with the screens, but I rarely use it just because, as you say, it's repetitive. If people are scrolling on the feed, it looks like there's a barrier between me and the follower or the person looking. So like Married at First Sight cast members, if they want to come on my pod, they just come to my house. We sit on the sofa. There was one lady I interviewed on a bench in a park because she didn't want to invite me to her house. And like that went viral mostly because everyone says, why are you on a bench in a park? But like it was visually, this woman was in the middle of the biggest controversy. The country was talking about her, judging her, hating her. And then her first chat was, again, on a bench in a park with just people playing around, running in the background. And like visually, again, it stops
There's something human about it.
How do you make sure people know it's a podcast?
They don't. They just, if they stop, because they're like, oh, I recognize her, what's going on this bench in the park? And then they see we're talking, like we clip it up to whatever the controversial bit is, and then I will always try to end on a cliffhanger. So like whatever, the spoiler people want to find out, then read the caption and go download it. But I think my philosophy is I never want my pods to look the same. I don't really care about consistency. I just think visually what's going to stop people scrolling. And how do we do that?
I so agree that the idea of just clipping up something funny that's happened, and this sounds like a non sequitur, but follow me here. Jerry Springer, Jerry. One of the reasons that was a successful show is early on it used to be very boring, but a new producer came on and they're like, when you were flicking on the TV, I need it to be pictures first. So it isn't someone having a chat about long lost, siblings reunited. Boring. I can't see that. Is that long lost siblings being reunited? It's just two people having a chat. But, if someone is marrying a donkey, then you have a donkey and the donkey's wearing a little wedding dress or whatever and there's a groom, and then you like, when you're flicking the TV, you're like, you immediately know what's going on. It's pictures first, right? So I think that across any sort of media, you have to work for what the platform requires.
Steph, who do you think is someone in the industry who's doing video podcasting really well?
I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mitch Cheery puts out. Tony and Ryan, I think, obviously have a really good show. They're very smart. I think, Josh, again, the fact that your stuff is ending up on my algorithm constantly says that what you're doing well. And I so agree with your philosophy as well of like doing stuff that's specific for the platform that you're talking on.
Yep.
But, there's probably a lot of small players as well who, there's another podcast I really like called Work Hates, which is done by a couple of comedians, which I think is devastatingly funny. They do it at a pub. Brett and Bronnie have a chat about, all sorts of work snafus that they've had. And because it's comedy, when they clip it together, it comes up and it makes you laugh. And that's actually sort of how I got into that podcast, as it was coming up on my reels. So they're doing a very good job.
It's so amazing how the definition of a podcast is expanding.
Yes.
It's really, really broadening, and the industry is accepting it for the first time, which is great. That type of content that you've just explained and described would have been so challenging to podcast purists back in the day, the idea that this is not recorded in a studio and this is recorded in situ. And podcasting has always been that. Even in the audio form, it's always been an intimate conversation that you feel like a third part of.
Yes.
And I think those are the formats, ironically, which are translating the best into video as well, because they are conversational. There's more than one face on screen. And so you feel like you're round a table in a pub, part of that conversation, even if you're not. And so I think, again, the idea that we lose that because everything has to become too polished and too shiny is a real threat to the industry. But it's format dependent, again. So to the chat show format that we were discussing previously, if podcasting is really going to kill the TV chat show, people are going to expect a degree of polish because that's what we've been brought up with. And so I think we'll see a slight fraction in podcasting, and there'll be the more kind of high fidelity video content, and then the more traditional, perhaps lower fidelity video content. And both are okay, depending on...
I think there's a line between, like you say, the Mitch Cheery one you're developing, which is great, and it's going to look like TV worthy, the set, but how he's like promoting it already, you feel a part of it. It's not like, look at me, I've got this, I'm great, which traditionally you'd never show the behind the scenes. He's saying, I was fired from a radio show, now this is my dream, and like, help me pick a table, help me pick a lamp, what do you think of this? I'm already excited because I feel I'm part of the journey. Like I've been commenting, go with this option, and then when the show's out, like you'll see the behind the scenes, it's like there's no barrier anymore.
And it's about repetition as well, right? The first time you see great content from a creator, you think that's good. The second time you see it, you go, okay, this person's pretty consistent. This is great. Maybe the third or fourth time you think, where else can I go to get more of this? And that's where you typically discover that they're a podcaster and there's a video and an audio version of long form content that you can go and check out. So I think it's about having that strategy in mind, finding your best clips and pushing those out and being really, really consistent with that.
I think Abby Chatfield is the perfect example of that. Because you can't scroll a platform without seeing her. But most of the clips are nothing to do with the podcast. It's just her in a bathroom after putting a makeup on, having a rant about something. And it's so engaging that then you go, okay, well, I like this point of view. Then you find out there's the podcast. Rather than if she just clipped up that rant, sat behind the microphone on set, I don't think she'd have the success she has. Podcasters seem to have this mentality where, they film for an hour and then they send it to a video editor and the video editor goes, what's the 90 seconds? And it's like, well, you can't, that's why it's going to flop. It's not going to go viral. You need to make something custom to then push to that. And that's what I've always kind of led with.
That's a bit of your strategy.
Yeah, and it works. And even if I then do a sit down with someone and we film it, we will then at the end record separate hooks, like lines we never said in the podcast. But if we had a great 20-minute chat, how do we condense that into a 5-second hook to get people on TikTok? No one's really going to give you 60 seconds to get to that point. So you need to find a way to say that in 5 seconds, hook them, and then go into the chat.
I think also on social media, people are a little bit aware of when something looks too produced.
Yes.
If it looks too sharp and it looks too good on TikTok, I find that turns people off, right? So I think that, you are the master of the algorithm though. You really are. You pop up on my Instagram constantly.
Thank you.
Yeah, which is a sign obviously that what you're doing is working, right? But I've found that if you have anything that looks like it's been too manufactured, then people assume that you're a corporate shill, so they just move on.
Funny on that, because I spent the last couple of years working as Kyle and Jackie O's video producer, doing all their social content, and my title was videographer. I don't know how to use a fancy camera. I've never used one. I shot everything on iPhone, and we had the kit available, but I said we don't want to create that barrier where it looks polished and produced, and we just want it to look like, the listeners are in that room with us having fun.
And that's why that works so well, right? Because the radio show in itself, which is also a podcast that's extremely successful, was an extremely polished, very professional product because it's obviously one of Australia's biggest radio shows. But when you watch the social media feed, it felt like I was watching my friends screw around.
Yeah.
And the vibe of that was a bunch of people having a really good time, and it was candid. And I think that that's actually harder to do than people think. Yeah.
Would you say then different platforms you have to make it look a certain way?
I will often maybe shoot a different hook intro for especially Instagram and TikTok. And Instagram, you can be a bit more personal because people maybe care about you more. TikTok, they couldn't care less about you.
Where do you find more engagement?
Surprisingly, Facebook. Yeah, and Facebook have now got a creator fund in Australia. I think everybody sleeps on that. They go, it's just for your mum, it's for your nana. But no, I'm getting minimum 10 million video views there a month. And that's just auto sharing from Instagram.
I find personally when you are trying to put together a new show, if you're ever putting out new content, I think of it as a lottery, right? Because you can do really good stuff and that increases your chances, but it's still a lottery. If something does well or if it doesn't do well, some amazing shows have been under the radar and will always be under the radar. And some average stuff has gone bonkers, right? But if you're putting out a new show or new content, you are buying a ticket in a lottery. And if you put out a really good podcast, just audio only, that's one ticket, right? And then if you do a TikTok, well, then you've got 2 tickets. Facebook, 3 tickets. Instagram, 4 tickets. And the more you put into that, the more tickets you have. And it's consistency, right? So if you buy 1 ticket for one lottery, but if that lottery was running every single week and you bought incrementally more and more and more, you've got a better chance of your show finding its audience. But it's consistency. And it's making sure that you're on those platforms in the way the audience on those platforms expects you to be behaving and speaking. And the more you do it, the better chance you have of it going off.
Exactly. And I think the more you do it, the more you get used to or develop your own way of doing it and what works.
Yeah.
Any advice for podcasters or producers out there taking the leap into video podcasting?
Just think outside the box. I just don't think you have to be restricted to sitting behind 2 microphones in the same spot every week. That's going to get very boring very quickly and you're going to see no growth.
go conservatively. Know exactly what you can do every week. Don't blow your mind trying to wrangle video and editing or whatever. Do what is sustainable. And once you're sure that you can do that, add a little bit more on. And it might just be you're doing your podcast as usual, but you are putting more energy onto the social accounts, and that's fine. And then if you increase it, eventually you might be able to do a longer form video on YouTube, for example, but don't go too hard, because it's always so disheartening when you just abandon a social media account, and it doesn't help with audience trust. So just make sure that you go nice, slow and steady. And I think that if you have fun, just keep on going from there.
I agree 100% with Steph. I think don't overcommit. Understand what's sustainable for you, what you can commit to, and make sure that it works for your schedule. The worst thing is a podcast just stopping because they've overcommitted and the workload is getting too hard. And also, I think for those who are successful in audio, understand that the move to video might be a bit of a bell curve in revenue growth, but the industry will catch up. And I think you're building something now which will be very, very lucrative in the future.
Thank you so much for being here with me today, guys. I've loved having a chat with you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This episode of the RØDE Video Podcast is a RØDE content production, recorded in Sydney, Australia. The RØDE Video Podcast is produced by Cade Robinson, Ian Camilleri, Ming Ing, Matt Shepherd, and me, Heen. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more RØDE content like this.